Hello, everybody. It's a beautiful Monday morning. Hope you all had a good weekend. Hope you're staying safe and washing your hands and all that good stuff. Anyways, let's see here. Wow, we're already in week 5, I think, of online school. It's crazy. Already in week 5. So, hope you all are doing okay. Hope you all had a good breakfast and are ready for a good week of school and just quarantine again. So, here today we're going to talk about zombie ants and other zombie bugs. We talked about parasites and diseases that infected deer, mice, cats, and crickets. Now we're going to learn about a parasite that can infect mostly ants, turn them into zombies, and cause them to do some pretty crazy stuff. So let's get into it. Okie dokie. So a lot of y'all in the discussion boards about the coronavirus questions had asked where this originated, where did it come from. The evidence still kind of shows that this virus originated in the Wuhan sea market, and it jumped from bats to pangolins to humans due to mutations in the virus. But now, this is very interesting. This is not a conspiracy theory. The government is coming out and saying this. The U.S. government is coming out and saying this openly. You can look this up on your own to verify it. Now, the U.S. government is coming out and saying, hey, we're going to investigate whether or not this coronavirus actually originated in a Wuhan research laboratory. So a few years ago, there was a team sent by the U.S. to this lab in Wuhan where they were doing a lot of research on bat viruses. And they had warned the U.S. government that the conditions in this lab were not safe. There could be a potential outbreak from all these viruses that they were researching and investigating in bats, and that the safety measures in the lab were not safe. So now the U.S. is kind of going back and looking at those files and is going to be investigating the possibility that this virus might have been accidentally released from a research laboratory where they were doing experiments on bats. So really interesting stuff. That's going to change everything. I'm not saying that it actually did. I'm not saying it originated in a lab. What I'm saying is that the U.S. government is looking into it now, which is very interesting. It's very interesting. No longer not really a conspiracy theory that the government's coming out and saying we're looking into the possibility that this didn't come from the sea market, but it actually came from a Chinese lab. So very interesting stuff. I would highly recommend reading into it on your own and doing your own research into this, because if that's the case, then that changes a lot of things. So as you might have heard, face masks are now mandatory in El Paso, and you have to wear them in public. Please, please, please wear a face mask in public. I went out to go pick up some food from a restaurant. I order on Friday, and I went to the restaurant to go pick up my food, and when I went in, there was like 6 other people that were there to pick up their food, but I was the only one wearing a mask, and this was the day after it became mandatory. So a lot of people here are still not taking this very serious. I mean, most people here are taking it seriously, but there's some people that aren't taking it very seriously. So please, please, please wear a mask in public. Remember, you can go 14 days without symptoms and be spreading this virus. You could you could have the virus for 2 weeks, not even know it, no fever, nothing, and be spreading it. So the mask, remember, it does provide you, the cloth masks and the blue surgical masks do provide you some protection, and but mostly they're there to make sure that we can protect each other so that we're not spreading it to each other. That's the main reason. So, and if you have a cloth mask, make sure that it might capture the virus particles on the outside of it. So make sure that you wash it with soap, water, bleach whenever you get home. You should be washing that thing every single time you come back in your house after wearing it. Don't touch the front of it when you're out in public. So don't touch this part of it when you're out. It's best once you keep it. It's best once you put it on and you go to several stores, just leave it on until you come back home, and then you can take it off, wash your hands, wash the mask, and all that stuff. So just be careful with it, and yeah, make sure to wear a mask in public because now it's mandated. So, and we just need to do to protect each other. So the parasite we're going to be going into today is actually a mushroom, a fungus that infects these insects. So mushroom life cycle, really briefly, this is the adult kind of form of the mushroom right here. It's going to have this cap. And once the mushroom, oh, sorry. So mushrooms are not plants. They are eukaryotic organisms, but they are different than plants. They don't do photosynthesis to get their energy. So mushrooms are going to need some type of food source to get their energy. They are known as what are called decomposers. They're going to break down dead organisms, usually recycle those nutrients into the soil, and get their energy from those dead organisms or rotting organisms usually. But we're going to see today that there are some mushrooms that infect and eat from living things. So let's get into this. So this is the adult kind of form of a fungus or mushroom. It's going to have this cap, and from this cap, it can release spores into the atmosphere. Now, these spores are similar to plant seeds. They are not seeds, but they act very similar to plant seeds. So these spores are microscopic. They're going to be very, very hard to see with your eye. They spread in the air, and then these spores if they land somewhere where they can grow, where there's a food source and the environment's right for it to grow, such as not too hot, these spores are going to start germinating, which means they're essentially going to start growing. And then these spores are eventually going to turn into a network of these kind of these networks of growing fungi called mycelium. So these mycelium is like a growing network, like the starting growing network of these mushrooms. And the mycelium will eventually turn into these adult mushrooms you see here with the cap and the stalk. So this is a mushroom life cycle. They are asexual and sexual. They can reproduce by themselves, or two of them can reproduce together. But this is the basic life cycle of a mushroom if it's reproducing asexually. So the fungus that's going to infect these ants, where's my taxes? Where's the video? Oh, here it is. Oh, here it is. Okay. All right. So the fungus that is going to infect and take over these ants. Let's go ahead and take a look at it. So as I showed you earlier, these spores, they're going to fly through the air. They're going to be released from the mushroom. All those little dots that you're seeing are the spores. And so these spores for this particular fungus, they want to land on ants. So they're going to land on these poor ants. And these spores are going to start growing inside of the ants. And so they're going to change the behavior of these ants. Usually ants want to live in their colony with their other ant, I don't know what you call it, I guess the other ants in the colony. And this mushroom is going to get inside and change the behavior of this ant and make it go away from its colony. And it's going to change the behavior and control its mind and make it climb up a tree and get away from the colony. And so once it climbs up this tree, it's going to find a space where the air is cooler and the mushroom can grow better. So down on where the ant was before, that's not really a suitable environment for the mushroom. The mushroom wants to grow in a little bit cooler spot higher up on the tree. So it's going to take over this ant's mind, make it climb up the tree. And then what this ant is going to do, or what's going to be forced to do once it reaches a spot that's cool enough, is it's going to bite into the tree. So it's going to bite into the tree, as you see there. And then the mushroom, the fungus, is going to start really taking over the ant. It's going to start growing and growing. And then eventually you're going to see the fungus start to sprout out of the ant like that. So the fungus is going to start sprouting out of the ant and growing. And then that little thing that you see forming there, that's going to contain spores of the mushroom. And then those spores are going to be released from that mushroom growing out of the ants. And then those spores are going to go infect other ants, and then that fungus is going to take over their minds and then make them leave the colony, climb up the tree, and then it's going to happen over and over and over again. And so it's a pretty interesting and scary thing. But as you can see, it climbs up above, it makes the ant climb above the colony so that the spores can spread on all the ants below the tree. So all those things growing out of the ants are the fungus, and they're spreading more spores to other ants and bugs to start taking over. So that's the growth of it right there. All right, as you see here, poor little spider right there got taken over. I can't really tell what type of bug that is. There we got some type of wasp that got taken over. All those little red things growing there, the fungus taking over those. Here we got another type of bug that got taken over, and the fungus is growing out of there. So this fungus takes over their mind, makes them climb up a tree, and makes them essentially die up high on the tree so that it can grow. So pretty terrifying stuff. Thank God this does not happen in humans. Imagine if there was a parasite that got into the human brain, made us climb up a tree, and then we bit into the tree, and then the mushroom started growing out of our head, and then it infected other people. Like, that's something out of a movie. That's craziness. Thank God it doesn't affect us. But this does happen to poor ants. So, poor ants. So just to review that real quick, kind of give you a step-by-step breakdown. The spores will land on the ant. They'll start growing inside of the ant, all right? Then the fungus is going to kind of change the behavior of the ant, kind of take over its mind, and the ant's going to leave the colony, start acting weird. It's going to climb up a tree, and then it's going to find a spot where it's cool and the fungus has a good opportunity to grow. And then the ant's going to bite into the stem or the tree or the plant, depending on what it climbed up. And then the fungus is going to start growing out of there. And then, so here we see the fungus growing out of the ant. This thing is going to have the spores, and those spores are going to fly around. And so if you, as you see here, this kind of gives you a big picture thing. The ant climbs up the tree, all right, bites into the leaf or the tree or the stem. And once the spores are dispersed, it's above the ant colony. So all those spores are going to fall into the ant colony right here, and they're going to infect more ants. So as you can see here, pretty crazy stuff. If this happened in humans, that would be a very, very terrifying thing. But thank God this does not happen in humans. And as you can see here, here's another type of bug that was infected with this parasite, climbed up a tree, bit into it, and then these mushrooms started growing out of it and released their spores. Here's an ant that got infected, and here's a close-up of the head. Here's the mushroom growing out of the ant's head, and then this little thing right here is that part of the mushroom is going to have the spores, and then those spores go infect other ants and take over their brains or their minds, and then the cycle just repeats over and over and over again. So the name of this fungus is called Ophiocordyceps unilateralis. There's a lot of different types of cordyceps mushrooms. There's actually a type of cordyceps mushroom that humans eat for energy. So some cordyceps are good, some cordyceps not so good. So pretty crazy stuff. If this happened to humans, that would not be that'd be terrifying if this happened to humans. It might be the end of the world if something like this happened to humans. So thank God that we're not ants. All right. Oh, I just said all right. I went the whole episode without saying all right, except for the end. So I'm proud of myself. So have a good rest of your day. I will post some questions on Schoology with this video. Please take care of yourself and your family. Make sure you're drinking water, get some sunlight, and have a good rest of your day, y'all. All right. I will see y'all later. All right. How do I get out of here? Goodbye.